The former head of ICE, Tom Homan, has just been picked as border czar for the upcoming administration, and he recently went on 60 Minutes to justify the price that migrants and Americans will pay for his plan. Take a look.
Here he comes.
I like 'em big. I like 'em chunky. I like 'em big. I like 'em lumpy. I like 'em.
We have seen one estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
We don't care.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is that what American taxpayers should expect?
What price do you put on national security? Is that worth it?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there's. Families can be deported together.
Surprise, surprise, motherfucker! The king is back!
Something's going on, just look around. Fear is on the rise, and there's blood all over the ground. Let's all just blindfold the poor. We must remind them what's in store. We got 'em now, just break 'em down a little bit more. Said, hey, you feed the machine, bring 'em all back down to their knees. No time to waste. Remind the slaves, they ain't gonna make it out alive today. I said, hey, you poison the well, watch it all burn, take him straight to hell. He's got the whole world in his hands. It was nice to know you. We've all been there, come on. Nothing's going on, no need to fear. And we're all in this together. And just to make it all clear, we want the same thing as you. This will all be over soon. Now here's a little pill, here's the truth. We're gonna, we're gonna, we're gonna, we're gonna, we're gonna, we're gonna, we're all gonna die. You feed the machine, bring 'em all back down to their knees. No time to waste. Remind the slaves, they ain't gonna make it out alive today. I said, hey, you poison the well, watch it all burn, take him straight to hell. He's got the whole world in his hands. It was nice to know you. We've all been damned, come on. We've all been damned, come on. Said, hey, you feed the machine, bring 'em all back down to their knees. No time to waste. Remind the slaves, they ain't gonna make it out alive today. I said, hey, you poison the well, watch it all burn, take him straight to hell. He's got the whole world in his hands. It was nice to know you. We've all been damned, come on. We've all been damned, come on. We've all been damned, come on.
Hey guys, what's up? Hey, check if you like that cartoon, and you like the song. They're not together. I just slid that stuff together and did all the words and stuff, all the captioning and everything. But yeah, the links will be in the description for the video and the song if you guys like that stuff. As well as anything that I cover in this video, any videos, any sources I use will be in the description. As always, do the things, guys. Press the buttons. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm gonna check out Tom Homan is an absolute monster. He's a beast. Now, I just wanted to highlight how amazing he is. All these picks have been fantastic from Trump, and honestly, they're kind of tests to see the ones that need to be confirmed, which is a good majority of them. A lot of these, I was laughing, telling my wife, like, dude, a lot of these people don't really sound or seem like they're qualified for some of these positions. I'm not really sure, but I think Trump just kind of looks at it as like, okay, you're a bureaucrat politician, like lifelong politician, paper pusher, and I think you're stupid, and you do this job, this empty job, and you don't really do anything for the American people. This loyal person that's loyal to me and the America First cause, he's smarter than you, and I think your job is easy, and I think you're stupid, and you have an agenda. That's why you suck at it. So I'm gonna put in someone who really doesn't really do that, and they're smarter than you, and I'm gonna give them support, and I think they'll do a better job than you. And then it's also gonna test these Republicans to see if, they're gonna confirm and go with the America First agenda like they're claiming they will. It's gonna be very interesting. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm gonna have so much stuff to cover for you guys. But anyway, I really I'm gonna focus a little bit more on why the reason why the Democrats lost so bad. It's because everyone hates them so bad. They're so smug. They're such pieces of trash. Watch David Pakman and what this other guy with this hoodie on. I don't know who he is. I've never seen him before. The I don't love Dave Rubin. He's not bad. You know what? It's Brianna Wu. This was a decent panel, but watch how smug. I'm just only going to really highlight how disingenuous and how ridiculous David Pakman and these other people are. That they don't want to argue points with anyone. All they do is all their arguments are ridiculous. Check this out.
David Pakman, I want to start with you. You were very clear to me when we spoke before the election that this whole issue of transgenders in sport and so on was completely irrelevant and nobody cared. Let me remind you.
You're saying Kamala Harris and Biden have come out in support of this.
They do. They support policies which actively protect. They support policies that protect transgender athletes performing in women's sport. And I think that is madness. You're saying, well, because most of these things in this UN report were outside of America, it doesn't matter. It does matter.
What I'm saying, it's a completely contrived issue that almost no one cares about in every single opinion poll.
Wow. Well, the problem is, David, you couldn't have possibly been any more wrong, because the New York Times, the liberal Bible, did a whole piece about the ad that Trump ran, which is the Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you. They said it was one of the most effective 30-second spots in political history and may have shifted the race, according to her own side, by 2.7 percentage points in Trump's favour after people watched it. Let's take a look at the ad before I come to you.
For prisoners.
For prisoners, every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
Kamala even supports letting biological men compete against our girls in their sports. Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
I remember whenever I first heard that ad, it was a while ago. I don't know if it was a month or two ago. I don't know when that ad was run, but I remember specifically whenever I heard that ad, and I remember saying it to my wife, and I remember quoting it to her, and she's not out here right now. She's normally out here whenever I'm doing videos, but she would remember me specifically going, "Hey, watch this ad. Is this really a Trump ad, or is this someone like memeing a Trump ad or something?" Because it's damn, because trans rights aren't really for a normal American working class, regular middle class type dude. We don't really think about it all the time, but whenever you ask us and you think about trans people competing in sports with the wrong gender and stuff like that, obviously I want nothing to do with that. So whenever you ask me, of course I want them to be able to live. I want them to have dignity. I want them, but you get that from yourself. You don't get dignity. You don't get your self-worth does not come from other people. I've been instilling this into my children this whole time. You don't get your self-worth, your dignity, your respect you have for yourself. You don't get that from other people. That's something that comes from yourself. You provide yourself dignity. You provide yourself your own self-worth. Other people may affect that, and they need to bounce off of what you're worth. And I don't know, I'm gonna rant a little bit, but anyway, as far as the trans stuff goes, no, it's not to the forefront of our mind. So they are correct. But this ad, I remember specifically saying to my wife, "Hey, listen to this. It says Kamala Harris, or if it was Joe Biden, I don't remember what it was, but it was Kamala Harris is for they, them. Donald Trump is for you." I was like, oh my God. Holy shit. That was a brutal ad. And it was just, and I forgot about it. I didn't really think about it, but he said it shifted a couple points in polls. Not that I trust polls, But that's the start of what this is about. But it's really not about trans rights. That's not what I'm focusing on in this video. It's Brianna Wu makes some great points as a trans person. She kind of got bumped up in my page a little bit, and I'm going to be clear too. I'm respectful. Brianna Wu was respectful during this segment. When you're respectful and you're passing, and I know it's a dude, but out of respect, I'm going to be referring to her as she, her. I don't know if that's her pronoun. She could be they, them. I don't know, but she appears as a female to me. That voice is obviously not there. I'm not going to critique it. It's just she obviously is passing. She obviously the trans people I don't like. I'm getting caught up because I don't want to get canceled before I even hit 100 subscribers. But whenever you actually try, the people that just throw a wig on and smear makeup on their face and go, respect me, I'm a lady. That shit, dude, that's crazy, bro. When you've transitioned and you're trying to do the female voice, you're trying to make it happen, you grew your hair out, you don't have facial hair, you're wearing makeup, you look like a petite female. Hey, dude, my brain doesn't get tripped up at all. I have no problem calling you female. Anyway, I'm done with that. These smug assholes, though, even in her presence, even in Brianna Wu's presence, they're going to absolutely shit the bed. Watch it shit.
So, look, on reflection, David, do you want to admit you were completely and hopelessly wrong about this?
No, in fact, in the aftermath, we figured out how dishonest you were, Piers, during that. And hopefully we can get a little bit of an opportunity. So let me lay it out.
Of course.
First of all, I went back and looked at the UN report in more detail. The UN report said nothing of the sort that you said. What you were referring to dishonestly was one footnote from an anti-trans organization making completely unsubstantiated claims. So I will wait for the apology from you. The UN report doesn't say that, but that wasn't the crux of your question. Second part of it, that ad with Kamala, I would have loved Kamala to respond to it. All she had to say was at the time that she said that, it was Trump administration Bureau of Prisons policy that that's what's available to trans inmates when determined medically necessary. She would follow the law. You haven't said that. And then number 3, Piers, on who cares about the issue, I checked Gallup survey, trans issues at the very bottom. The reality is almost no one's trans. Almost no trans people are in competitive sports, and people do not care about the issue. However, there's a lot of money made grifting about trans this and trans that, even from people on this panel. So I get why they keep bringing it up.
Now, do you see how smug he's acting? Now, I want you to remember this part where Piers is basically asked him about the trans thing that he mentioned in the past and asked him if he wanted to apologize. And he flipped it around and said that it was only a footnote by a radical transphobic group in the UN statement or whatever it was. Remember that. Remember that, because Piers Morgan's team of people is going to immediately run to whatever they're talking about, whatever they're referencing, which is kind of irrelevant. But it's just wait till he brings it up in a little bit. It's really worth it, because David Pakman's response to being called out is again goes into why the Democrats lost and got absolutely fleeced in this election and lost everything. And it really comes down to the left is now the party of the elite, and the smug college educated. But being college educated does not mean you're smart. So all these people went to college so they can hoard it over us and so they can lord over us and stand over us and say, we're educated. You're not educated. That's why you're voting wrong, because you don't get anything. Watch how smug he is in a little bit here, especially whenever Brianna Wu shows up. It's going to be bad. And the dude so it's basically Dave Rubin and this other guy, Ben Ferguson or whatever. I don't know Ben Ferguson. I've seen him on Piers Morgan before, but maybe you guys know him. I don't really know him too much. I know Dave Rubin, of course. But those two conservatives versus the David Pakman, the hoodie guy, and Brianna Wu. And Brianna Wu it's going to get ugly.
The reason why this was an issue in the election is because Democrats made it an issue. They wanted to force little girls to be in locker rooms with grown men. They wanted to force women off the podium and allow men
Mark
on
Robinson,
the podium.
huh?
Riley Gaines is a great example of this. Maybe you should listen, and then you'll understand why you got your ass kicked in the last presidential election and nationwide.
Do you know what it means to clap back, Raymond? Because I do.
and the people said this was an issue, and then you mocked them and you act like it's not an issue when in fact it is an issue. So keep acting like you know what's going on in this country when the reality is this was an important issue to voters. It was an important issue to mothers. It was an important issue to moms that have girls in sports. It was a really important issue to men and dads that have young girls in sports. And so when you act like you guys weren't trying to do this and you weren't mandating that men compete with women and men beat women in sports and you weren't protecting young girls in the locker room, this is what you get. You get the American people and the silent majority that said no more of this radical and extreme position, and they showed up on election day. And if you would have listened to the American people, you would have understood this issue mattered to moms and dads, including liberals and undecideds, and that's why you lost.
I mean, this guy is totally right, man. He absolutely destroyed them with this, with their smug attitudes, and it's gonna get worse than this, I promise you. But the reason that this was an issue, and the reason why these ridiculous lefties online are saying it wasn't an issue, it doesn't matter. Look at the polls. Look at the exit polls. Look at the data. Look at we're just so intelligent. Look at how educated we are when we discuss the data. Yeah, they're saying that the trans rights things wasn't a big issue because of how bad all the other issues were. That's how dumb they are. They're so dumb they weren't able to understand that because polling and exit polls, the reason why the trans stuff was number 7 out of 7 on the list is because the first 6 on the list were absolutely freaking on fire. Okay, the immigration, the inflation, the economy, the just dude, you got the Democrats did everything so poorly that that's what I meant earlier whenever I said it wasn't a big deal until you bring it up. So it's just like, yeah, it's not a big deal because we're so mad about the economy, we're so mad about everything else that but then once you're just like, oh, and then also, there was a study that I think was in a UN report that showed that like they're going to discuss it. I'll make sure I put it in here, so don't quote me on it now because it's going to come up in a little bit. Something like out of like 29 countries or something, there was 400 it I'll just show it to you. It was something like 400 medals weren't won in 29 different countries by females that were beaten out by genetic males. And you'll see what the stats are. They're and don't get me wrong, Pakman's gonna say he's gonna, try to discredit the study and everything, but that's what they were arguing about at the beginning. You'll see, but that's why this was important in the election. Everything else was much more important than the trans rights. But whenever you brought it up to us, and went, "Oh, then what about prisoners getting sex changes? What about men going into your little girls' bathrooms?" Oh, then you bring it up and you remind us. We're like, "Oh yeah, fuck that shit. That shit's terrible. Absolutely not. Please, no. We're totally against that. Absolutely against that. Please, we don't want anyone in charge that wants to do anything with that at all." So they look at the polling and go, "Oh, Americans don't care about this. They don't care at all." It's because everything else was so important. Everything else was so bad. You guys messed everything up so badly that yeah, trans stuff was like number 7 on the list because the top 6 were absolutely devastating.
Here's the reality is that this wasn't an issue except for the fact that Republicans made it an issue. There was almost $250 million disinformation campaign surrounding the issue of gender reassignment surgeries among trans inmates. This is a position that Kamala Harris has been virtually silent on for over the last 5 years, but they took cherry-picked a quote from 2019, shoehorned it into the narrative.
She said it.
Put a ton of money from a very well-funded right-wing media ecosystem behind it and convinced Americans that, again, an issue that Kamala Harris didn't say a word about in this election cycle is somehow the most important issue in this election cycle.
She had so much more money than Trump to spend. So much more money.
$1 billion.
But the idea that the right had all the money here.
It does not change the fact that what the right's money went to was a well-funded disinformation campaign trying to shoehorn this issue of trans rights into the zeitgeist.
Hang on.
So this is the other insane lefty that's on the panel, the 2 conservative guys, and then the 2 crazy people, Pakman and this dude. Again, you got to pay attention to what they're saying. Pay very close attention to what he's saying. The electorate was tricked by misinformation by the right about trans rights and trying to shoehorn it and force it into this election and make it an issue. This dude is so dumb and so wrong. Number one, what disinformation? Like what is the information that's incorrect? Number one. Number two, they weren't shoehorning it into the election. It was just number 6 or number 7 on the list of things that were important. That whenever you bring it up, we go, yeah, we don't want that either. That's another thing that you can check off the list of shit we don't want anything to do with, and none of our taxpayer money should go to it, and it needs to be just abolished immediately. It's just, but the main point that we're getting to is remember what he's saying. He's saying that we're too dumb. We're so dumb, we don't know what's going on. And the Republicans put together a disinformation campaign and tricked us into thinking about trans rights and voting, being scared of trans people because the Republicans scared us, I'm guessing, because he doesn't even specify what is disinformation and what they're tricking us about, what they're saying that is untrue, and what our reaction is to it. He's just saying it was disinformation. It tricked the Republican voters. It tricked voters into what he's saying you're dumb. He's saying you're too dumb. The voters are dumb, and they were so easily tricked into thinking trans rights were a big deal and they needed to do something about it. Dude, so which one is it? Were trans rights not important, or was the electorate tricked into thinking trans rights were important and voted in a, with their bigotry towards and their transphobia? Which one is it? You got to pick one. And also, it's just, I don't know who this guy is. Who's this? Who is this guy?
Name any Republicans that had trans flags in front of their offices, and then tell me how many Democrats had trans flags in the halls of Congress. You cannot tell me this wasn't an issue when there were congressmen and senators
The
that if you
notion,
walk the
the
halls of
notion that
Congress had
because somebody
trans flags up.
acknowledges
They made it an
the
issue.
notion,
They made it
the
an
notion
issue,
that
man.
do you just want to yell, or do you want to actually have a conversation? Because I know that you love the
I
sound of your
want
voice, but the
conversation
fact
on
that somebody
facts.
He wants to yell.
Ben, my dude, I know you just want to yell. Like, this is it's great that you have your own show. You can do that into a camera with nobody interrupting you the whole time. The fact that somebody could acknowledge the humanity of trans people is not the same as the issue of gender reassignment surgeries for trans inmates. And if you ask the majority of Americans, because of this very well-funded right-wing disinformation campaign,
It's
where
not
again,
disinformation.
What's the disinformation?
a quarter of $1 billion was put behind this thing.
Piers,
That
it's
is why
not
the vast majority of
disinformation
Americans
if they
thought that
ran
she
a
was
bad-
right.
Okay, look, before I come back.
So again, he's saying the disinformation tricked voters because they're dumb. That's voters thought that Kamala Harris was for the trans rights and this radical trans stuff, but she's not. And the basis they're doing that for is I don't know if you remember, but she did answer it correctly like they wanted her to before, whenever they said the stuff that happened to trans people that were getting surgeries in jail, that happened whenever Trump was in office under his administration. That happened. That happened under his watch. Or no, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. Let me adjust that. They're saying that those things were passed, or that they were just that was already on the books. I can't remember exactly the timeline for those laws, and that's not what this video is about. But Kamala answered it at one point when they said, "Hey, what do you tell voters that say they don't want they don't think criminals in jail should be getting sex change operations for transgenderism under with taxpayer dollars?" And she said, "All I was doing was following the law." That's the point I'm trying to make. Sorry, all that rambling just to say she was just saying, "I was following the law. I was following the laws that were on the books. I didn't push anything. I didn't change any laws. I just followed the law." So they're disingenuous to say this and basically craft it as, those laws were under the books with Trump. So, so we're to believe that Trump is the one that proposed that and put that through, or Trump was okay with those laws and he let them be on the books, and Kamala just did what Trump wanted. So that's what they're framing. That's how dumb they are. That's how crazy they'll skew it. Is Kamala, what do you tell voters when maybe I'll try to find it real quick. K Kamala, what do you tell voters that are concerned about sex change operations for transgender people in prisons on taxpayer money? I'm just following the law. The law is just on the books. This dude's trying to tell you that they spent a quarter of $1 billion, $250 million on tricking us into caring about being mad at trans people because they tricked us into thinking that it's an issue, but it's not. But every politician for the left has a trans flag on their desk, but every politician on the right doesn't. But it's Republicans doing it. Well, how dare they? And Kamala just did what Trump wanted. Trump wants sex changes for criminals in jail, right? Isn't that one of his policies? Oh my God.
Let me ask you this question, very broadly speaking here.
Sure.
Do you believe that transgender Americans should have access to gender-affirming care in this country?
I believe we should follow the law. I mean, I think you're probably pointing to the fact that Donald Trump's campaign has spent tens of millions of dollars.
They're trying to define you on this.
Yes,
I'm asking you to define yourself, though. Just broadly speaking, what is your value? Do you believe they should have that access?
I believe that people, as the law states, even on this issue about federal law, that is a decision that doctors will make in terms of what is medically necessary. I'm not going to put myself in the position of a doctor.
This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law, and it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing, stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries
you know what? You got to take responsible for what happened in your administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in his presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment surgeries?
I will follow the law, just as I think Donald Trump would say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think he spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas, at $20 million on that ad, on an issue...
Dude, could you imagine she's about to lecture Donald Trump about wasting money during his campaign. He wasted $20 million. That was $20 million on that dumb little thing. Oh my God. She wasted $1 billion and went $20 million in debt. Donald Trump spent on that ad what she went negative after she had over $1 billion in just 100 days. But, that poor Trump. Anyway, the point is, so what you guys need to know is, that's all disinformation, and Donald Trump is the one that wrote the laws and created the stuff. It's actually the America First agenda to give sex change operations to prisoners, the criminals that are in jail. That's like a thing that Trump brought forward, and Kamala just followed the law. Okay, the Biden administration, and Trump needs to take accountability for what happened, take responsibility of what happened during his administration. He's the one that brought forward that policy of giving those sex changes to criminals. That's an America First thing. That's a Republican thing. That's a Trump thing. And poor Kamala was just following the law. And the voters were dumb enough to not know that. Right. Donald Trump, she followed the law, right? Donald Trump did that. Like one of those little grassroots, but Biden did that. No, Trump did that. Sex changes in prisons, Republicans and Trump, that's their idea. That's their policy. They did that.
I don't think of anyone better qualified, given you're the only trans member of the panel now, to respond to what our two liberal friends are saying.
I'll be trans if you'll give me a chance to talk.
You've had so many shows.
There's something
on trans
actually
people,
there. There's something there, Dave.
It's always some gay person that's talking on our behalf. So I'm really excited today to talk about how everyone here is wrong. David, I love your show. I consider you a friend.
I can't be wrong.
You and the Democrats are completely wrong about what trans people need. We don't need you advocating for, trans vaginoplasties in prison. We need to retreat back to the basics of what we need, which is HRT and healthcare. And the problem is the Democrats have been captured by this fringe left that has redefined what trans means to all this non-binary nonsense and all this stuff that has nothing to do with how we got our rights in the first place. Ben, you can appreciate this. I was the first trans person to ever transition at Ole Miss, our alma mater. That was very, very different. It was 20 years ago, toddy. And the thing is, the way I got equality and got people to respect me in Mississippi was not by screaming at them or lecturing them about my pronouns. It was getting them to see my humanity. This is something trans people have just completely lost. And the problem is the Democratic Party is unwilling to call out these bad actors. And because of this, we are having a conversation that does not serve trans people. Piers, I am begging you on this show, stop inviting these stupidest leftists on to make the argument for trans civil rights. Let some people actually understand this stuff. And Dave is laughing because you understand integration as a gay man. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've done the same playbook your whole career.
Well, first,
this works. This is how
first
you
off,
got
I'm
gay
only
marriage.
gay. I'm only gay starting at 10 p.m. What time is it? We'll have to check on that. But actually, you're completely right. Brianna, you're completely right. What's happening with the left is that these saviors, these progressive warriors that you see in these boxes here, think that they know more about these people than they know about themselves.
Absolutely ridiculous.
And by the way, you know, this has nothing to do with a well-funded evil money machine that the Republicans were doing. There's something called boys and girls. And
Rubin's
they are
the right guy to
different.
talk about
and
that,
most
isn't he?
Most parents, oh God, you're such a smug prick. Listen, most parents actually want to defend their daughters and don't want them to have the crap kicked out of them by boys, and they don't want them to be playing boys in soccer or any of these other things. That is a defense of girls.
Brianna and Dave are both correct. I already said it before in previous videos. Dads do not vote to ensure that their daughters could easily abort their grandchildren. That's not something they do. Dads also don't vote in a way that's going to allow their daughter, their 16-year-old daughter, to not get, you know, possibly a free college education and a scholarship to go to the school of their choice or to their dream college and live their dream because some man decided in whenever they were 14 or 15 that they're going to join the swim team or whatever team, and then now all of a sudden, you know, my daughter loses some shine and maybe gets a half scholarship, and now we can't afford to go to that college. It's just dads don't vote that way. The dads that do vote that way are wild. Those are the ones that are crazy that we don't understand. Those are the ones that are manipulated and forced by their wives. Those are the men that, you know, we don't really consider those men. But, you know, real quick, David Pakman is so excited. You saw both of those leftists, their faces whenever Brianna Wu said stop bringing on the dumbest leftists to defend them, and she's specifically talking about these two idiots. You saw their faces. David Pakman got some wind back in his sails because Dave Rubin mentioned about big money and big money ads and spending a lot of money and that kind of thing, because he's getting so excited because now he gets to bring up Dave Rubin and Tenet Media and all that, the Russian money for Tenet Media that helped Tim Pool and Dave Rubin and that group that was in Tenet Media. I'm not getting into that whole story, but Dave Rubin and David Pakman are about to argue with each other, and I'm gonna try my best just to skip it because it's dumb. Look, this is what I'm talking about. This is why the left lost. Because David Pakman's in a corner, he's getting embarrassed right now by what Brianna Wu just said, so he's going to pivot, and now they're going to argue about how David Pakman's going to make fun of Dave Rubin for being involved in the Tenet Media thing and the Russian money and all this stuff, because that's relevant to any of us. And, like, we care so much about that stuff so much that I hope these two rich guys argue with each other. That'd be great.
Bring in David Pakman again, because you were very quick when I asked how you felt about being so wrong about this, to accuse me of being misleading, disinformation, misconstruing a United Nations report. So because we're a very nimble team here, while you were talking, they just went and double-checked, because I was curious what you were talking about. And we found, we found the United Nations report. And it's not a footnote, as you said, it's page 5 of the report. It says, and I quote, "The United Nations says nearly 900 biological females have fallen short of the podium because they were beaten out by trans athletes. The findings were compiled by the UN's Rapporteur on Violence Against Women, entitled Violence Against Women and Girls in Sport. The report said more than 600 athletes didn't medal in more than 400 competitions in 29 different sports, totaling over 890 medals. The replacement of the female sports category with a mixed-sex category has resulted in an increasing number of female athletes losing opportunities, including medals, when competing against males." The report said. So, David, again, would you like to now apologise for being not only wrong about this being an election issue, but being wrong about your correction when I asked you if you were sorry for being wrong?
Look at the underlying source, Piers. I have it printed
You
out
said it was
in
a
the other
footnote.
room.
It wasn't a
Look
footnote.
at the
It's page
underlying
5.
source.
It's page
Now,
5.
I do want to say one thing about this. I
Rubin,
actually
what did you say
agree
it was
with
a
a
moment
lot
ago?
of what Brianna and what Dave Rubin said. I actually agree with I am not the savior here to do X, Y, or Z for trans people. What I'm saying is I don't actually think I even need to play that role. I don't think this is the issue that maybe you think I believe it to be. So I agree with a lot of what Dave Rubin and Brianna said there. I do think it's important to consider that when Dave Rubin talks about well-funded this or that, his Russian money source just dried up, and he's the last person who should be talking about funding sources. And to be honest, Dave, hold on a second. Hold on.
Going to begin the full circle of what I'm talking about on why the Democrats lost and why everyone hates them so much. So he came on the Piers Morgan show. He's on here all the time. So they have a relationship. I get that. They can joke back and forth. But Piers Morgan brought up that thing in the past about the UN report that talked about this trans issue, okay? And David Pakman waited this whole time to come back to Piers Morgan to bring it up and try to force Piers Morgan to apologize because that was just like some footnote and it wasn't a part of the UN report. It was just like some footnote by someone. It has nothing to do with it. And Piers Morgan should apologize. So Piers' team goes out and finds out, no, it wasn't a footnote by some fringe group. It was on page 5 of the UN's report. They're presenting this study. And so I guess, and immediately what they do is this is what the left does. These are their debate tactics that I find absolutely disgusting, and this is why we hate them. So as soon as he starts to read the report, you hear them start to squat. What's the source? What's the source? Because they don't care what Piers is saying. They don't care that they're wrong and they're incorrect, and it actually was on page 5 and not some footnote on the back of the panel, back of the thing. It has nothing to do with the UN report. They need to start to immediately tear apart whatever institution created that study. Whatever study that was made from, whether it's Yale, no matter what it's from, if it's from Southern Poverty Law Center, it doesn't matter. As soon as they find out whoever created that, whatever the source is, whatever institution made that, they need to find out who it is so they can start to apply labels to it, like right wing, transphobic. It's so that's their debate tactic. They're not gonna argue with you about the point and the substance of what's actually in the UN report and what that study shows. They need to tell you that the institution that created the study is racist, homophobic, transphobic, whatever it is, and against their agenda. So their entire study has to be thrown out. Ergo, the entire UN's report is thrown out because they used a study from an institution that they don't like and doesn't say everything that they like. So they need to tear down that institute. What's the source? What's the source? You're not even listening to what he's saying. You want to know what the source is so you can start to go through your brain on your Rolodex of everything that institution ever did against your agendas. So you can say that they're just against you and they're partisan and that's not true and they're just making it up and it's just. Then in the end, he can't apologize for being wrong, and that's why we hate you. You can't argue on merit, and then in the end, he's going to pack up the goalpost, put him in the backpack, and start running around on the field. Because why is he bringing up? See how he waited so long to bring up Dave Rubin and the funding thing? Dave Rubin was just talking. They're the ones that brought up funding. They're the ones that said, "Oh, Donald Trump spent so much money. They spent so much money and funded so much stuff on the transphobia stuff." And all Dave Rubin said, "Well, they spent some money. They did some funding on that, and that was his in. That was Pakman's in to go. Oh, there's a lot of nerve. Him bringing up funding. How dare he bring up funding whenever he was funded by Tenet Media, which is a Russian disinformation propaganda." Oh my God, dude. Dave Rubin was not making any sort of point at all about funding. You guys were making points about funding and Trump campaign funding transphobic stuff. And he was just reiterating your point, and he just included the words funding. And now you're just like, oh, he has a lot of nerve to be bringing up funding. You guys brought up funding. And now that he mentioned funding because you talked about it, you see how this web of shit, this is why we hate you guys. David Pakman, this is why we hate you. This is why you lost the election, and it was a full clean sweep. Because you guys have just gone down this spiral. And then the thing is, everything I just explained sounds really confusing. And you're gonna say I'm confused and I'm stupid. But dude, I'm paying attention. I'm listening to everything you're saying. You're ridiculous. And now you're just trying to smear Dave Rubin. So this went from talking about, something that we're pretending is, you're trying to defend, or you're on the side of you're an ally for these people, but instead of, having good arguments and making good points about this and having a good conversation with Brianna Wu involved and doing this thing, now it's time to smear Dave Rubin. I'm gonna skip the whole thing. It's dumb, straight up dumb, and try to get back to the issue at hand. But Dave, this is why this dude, Pakman, this is why we hate you guys. This is why you guys lost, and that's the end of it. This is a little bit unfortunate. I was gonna spare you guys having to listen to this, but it ties into why we hate them so much. So I am gonna include a little bit. I'll try to edit out as much as I can. But remember what we were talking about. Remember the importance of what we were talking about. And Brianna Wu is on here to set them straight and to make sure that this conversation goes the way. And listen to where the conversation goes now. Remember how important and how serious the conversation just was about trans rights and Brianna setting them straight and making sure that, we're fighting for the right rights for trans people and not the fake stuff that the left brings up that the right then attacks, and then the trans people ultimately get shuffled to the back and they don't get the help they need. That's what Brianna's trying to say. And they're just missing it. And then now all the men, straight men and gay men on the panel are now going to argue with each other about this here. After Brianna Wu came on here to try to get trans people the rights that really matter, that really, as an American first, you know, centrist, independent guy that leans right in his, conservative base, nuclear family, religious freedom, all that stuff. I'm not a Christian, but religious freedom, all that stuff. I feel bad. I mean, I don't have any problem with trans people that are just normal. It's hard for me to say normal trans people, but I don't want to just bring up conservative ones like all the conservative, yeah, all the conservative ones, but what's her name? Yeah, Blair White. Goddamn. So yeah, I mean, I don't mean to just bring up Blair White, and bring up the conservative trans people, but someone like Blair White, those types of trans people that are reasonable, that are just like, hey, look, I'm a trans person. I don't want to be, I need some health care. I need some support. And I don't want to feel like I'm trash because I have this thing in my brain, and it is a mental illness, and it is. But I have a mental illness. I don't go to therapy. I don't take any psychotropic medicine. But we all have our own mental illnesses. We all have the things that plague us in our minds. It's not every single person in this that's alive right now has a mental illness. Their mental illness just is different than mine, and it's not for me to say that it's a better or worse mental illness than the one that I have, but it comes with certain things and it comes with certain issues that unfortunately I can't relate to and I don't really understand. And I just have to, you got to chill out though. Going into the wrong bathrooms whenever you're a 6'4", 300-pound dude with a beard and you got a skirt on, with my young daughter, well, that's never gonna fly. It's not gonna fly. So you have to be reasonable. And it's like pedophilia. They're trying to make pedophilia, some sort of like it's not bad. It's just like a sexual preference. Like you only date Asian chicks, or you only like to date trans people, or you're gay and you only date other gay people, of course. It's just like that. But I like kids. I'm going off on a tangent. All right, so we are gonna have to see some of this, unfortunately for you, but it goes into why we hate them so much. Remember, this was to highlight trans people, and Brianna's gonna make sure that trans people are having the right advocates talk about the right things for them. And listen where this goes, because the lefties gotta left. They got to do it.
Ben's jumping. Everybody's jumping. Hold on. A second. I can't even hear Ben. Why would Ben jump in? I'm not even addressing Ben. I think
hang on.
Dave's so sorry that Brian and I
let me. You made a very direct.
Dave Rubin is upset because Pakman and the other lefty on the panel passed him on subscriber count, and that's what I think this is, said Pakman. That's what you think what is. You're the one that brought all this up and took the entire conversation and entire debate into tenant media and a left turn into funding. And Dave Rubin's upset about you passing him with subscriber count, and you're doing it with that smug, sarcastic way, like that's not what it is. and you're the one that stirred this entire shit up so you can bring this up and smear Dave Rubin. And now it's Dave Rubin's mad about the subscriber count, and that's why you brought up, hey, dude, Pakman, I saw you the other day, bro. You were crying about losing 10,000 subscribers after the night of the election. So I don't know that you should be bringing this up at all. This is all strange. Back to it.
Charge against Dave Rubin. Let Dave Rubin reply to that.
Because no one believes your BS anymore. Jesus Christ, these people are so
They've been
pathetic.
indicted, Rubin. The Tenet Media people were indicted.
I got indicted.
He was not indicted. And it said in the report, if you weren't a smug prick, to quote him
I
earlier,
didn't say Rubin was indicted. I just said the money dried up.
that Dave Rubin and the others involved did not know about it. And this is why people think you're kind of a jackass.
Yes, this is
because
why
you can't
everyone
read
hates
reports.
progressives.
Words in my mouth,
This is the
Ben.
reason why
Piers.
you read the report. And by the way, Pakman, if
Yeah,
this happened
thank
to you, and in the
Ben's
report
coming
it
to
said you
his
were
defense.
unaware, if it said that you were unaware, I would defend you because I don't think you indict people for things.
I'm
When the federal
defending
government
Dave.
says in the
I'm
indictment,
defending Dave Rubin.
in the indictment.
So to reiterate this, the only reason that this is being talked about in this conversation right now is because they brought up funding and how much funding went towards transphobic rhetoric in the election from Republicans. And Dave Rubin just repeated it because they said the words funding. So that was an in for Pakman to attack Dave Rubin about his business with Tenet Media and the funding that he received from a potential Russian whatever. Okay. And then Dave Pakman, he's defending Dave Rubin. And that's why he brought up this entire thing, which we were talking about trans rights. And Dave Pakman, do you see why we hate you? So Dave Pakman, let me tell you something. Even if it was in the worst interest for me, if you begged me to vote a certain way because that's what side you want me, I would vote for the worst things in the world just to not have you get your way because you make me so mad the way you act. You're such a piece of shit. Do you understand why we hate you? Do you understand why the entire country went red? It's not because we went to the right. It's because you're going so far left. The progressives, Dave Rubin just said it. This is why everyone hates progressives. This is how you all act. And regular middle class, working class people look at this type of shit online and we look at these debates online and you represent the left. You represent the Democrats. And these are your debate tactics. You think this is the only time? You think this is the only time I'm going to be able to find a debate where we're talking about politics and talking about important things for rights and things for certain marginalized groups? And one of you go off and bring up something that has nothing to do with anything just to smear a Republican? Do you think, I know Republicans do it too, but I'm telling you, progressives, this is their thing. This is what they do. They all act like this. And this is why we all hate your guts. And you're all like this now. The Democrats are now all the elites and all the leftists that are like this is all you have left. Your entire side is filled with these people. The working class and the regular middle class people look at this type of thing and go, why are they even talking about this again? Oh, why? Because they brought up funding and Rubin said funding. So now that's an in for them to talk about some shady funding that may or may not have happened. And then now he's defending him. But and then Brianna Wu, you see her reaction. She's just like, what are they talking about? What happened? What is this? What are we talking about? My God.
Pakman,
You're being a tool, man.
you are
great.
no
Can we
real
talk about
Pakman,
trans
which I'm
people?
quite good at.
Can we get back to this
There's
about
a
this
reason,
left versus right
Piers. There's a
spirit
reason
match?
that everyone hates progressives, and the reason that everyone hates
This is why they
progressives,
lost.
it's not just that they're wrong about all of the issues and they will lie and their only real goal is power. It's because they're also smug elitists. And Pakman, I did see online the other day you were crying because your audience is purging you and you're running out of subscribers and you're
Let's
in a
talk about
doom
that.
loop and the reason is no one gives, Piers, pardon me, a shit about this woke bullshit anymore. We've had it, and now you guys can sit back and be quiet. You want to talk about people being paid for their ideas?
Just let me address this.
It's you people who have had the entire cultural machine for 20 years. You've had all of entertainment. You have had all of Hollywood. You have had all of music. You've had all your P. Diddy parties and Epstein and everything else. And now
don't
enough
forget
of
all the
us
money
have
they just
had
played
it.
to
So
Beyonce.
crawl back into your
Hold on a
little
second.
irrelevant cave. It's time, bro.
But most Americans just feel no connection with whatsoever. As people like Axl Rod, Joe Scarborough, Bill Clinton, others, as they all come forward and say this out loud, do you kind of agree with them? I mean, do you accept there's got to be a lot of inward looking by the Democrats here to say, we have gone too far here?
Piers, here's why this is not going to go away. It's because it's not that Republicans are descending into some woke pit of the depths of hell. It is that everybody else will accept Republican framing on wokeism. And so, I think I'm a pretty good indicator of where the mainstream of the Democratic Party is. Do you know how many times I've spoken about trans issues on my shows because they were the #1 issue of the day? Literally never. Literally never. But if you watch Fox News, if you watch all of the ads that happened in this election cycle, you would think that it was all Democrats could think of from the second they woke up in the morning until the second they went to bed at night. It was, how can we get more people surgeries, gender reassignment surgeries? Let's get just trans, sports, like the whole thing. It is not what Democrats are talking about, but it's what Republicans exploit in terms of convincing
I don't agree. Hang on. Don't all shout, please.
It is so difficult.
Hang on that one point.
It is so difficult to finish a
Brian,
sentence.
on that one point, all I would say is this. Both Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have signed up to trans athletes being allowed to compete in women's sport. So it's not a right-wing propaganda campaign to try and tell people that's what's happening. It is official government policy.
Did Kamala Harris say a word? Did Kamala Harris say a word about trans people in this election cycle?
She has definitely spoken about it this year.
Yes.
This year,
yeah.
while she was running to be the president of the United States, which seems like an important distinction in terms of what we're talking about here. She mentioned the issue of trans.
So this guy's gonna tell you it's not that the left has gone too far left, okay? It's that the voters are so dumb, they're so naive and dumb and gullible, they're willing to accept the Republicans' framing that the Democrats have gone far left. And then he brings up, well, it's actually policy, though. Biden and Kamala have signed up for these things. It's actually policy. And he's like, well, did she even talk about it during this campaign cycle? And he's like, well, she talked about it this year. He's like, well, I mean, it's a pretty big distinction between her just talking about it as the vice president and then actually running a campaign for president. Why is that different? How is it different? Oh, that's right, because she needs to be able to say two different things inside the same year, and you justify it as that not being a flip-flop. That's not flip-flopping. That's just her principles changed, or what? So both this guy's screwed both ways you slice it. He just said that, again, this is why we hate you.
This is my whole problem with all of this, Piers, is look, respectfully, the liberal shows here, you're right. You don't talk about trans issues. You don't invite people like me on. We don't have a say in our own party. And what has happened? This fringe progressive nutjob part of our party has hijacked my movement as well as we've hijacked so many other movements. Look at black people. Do you think black people want their local police department burned down and like defund the police? Of course they don't. Do you think most women want to shout their abortions? Of course they don't. Trans people are just the latest victim. And the problem is the left, like respectfully, trans people don't have a voice on the left. So you're listening to this non-binary communist Hamas supporting fringe. And they're the ones talking to Kamala and saying like, look, unless you stand with like vaginoplasty in prison, you're a transphobe. So of course the entire party is going along with that. The problem is then it gives Ben and his ilk this ammunition. So they're the only.
I absolutely agree with everything Brianna just said, except for the framing that like ammunition just seems like a negative word. And he's about to defend it. I'm not even going to include it in the video because it's not worth it. It's just a word she used. Ben, calm down. But she just like she said, she did accuse him of saying incorrect things, and that's ammunition. But that's why it's kind of like a negative. But that is why the Republicans are talking about it. It's because the fringe is talking to the politicians. The politicians go, okay, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. That's what happens. And those fringe people are the loudest. So the politicians, what do the politicians do? They placate, they kowtow, they always, they're always going to bend towards whoever's screaming the loudest. It's just what they do. Okay. Politicians are so fake. They're so ridiculous. It's how they are. So those fringe progressives are screaming the loudest, and the politicians are falling in line and doing whatever on the left. And Brianna's totally right. And then that gives the right a ton of points to make, ads to make, going, hey, look how crazy, look how far left they're going. And that's what happens. And this completely was rejected. This election was going that far left. But that was, again, that was table issue 5, 6, 7, 8. That was not economy, immigration, inflation, all those war, peace, that kind of stuff. Trans stuff, gay issues, all that stuff is way at the bottom of the list because the world is so messed up right now. They have messed up. The government messed up the world so bad that the gay issues, the trans issues have fallen down the list. But that doesn't mean that it's still not a major issue and the Republicans are telling us about it. It's not the Republicans' fault that you guys are crazy and you keep doing crazy shit that they have to tell us about it. It's wild. That's a wild rationalization.
I lied when I didn't.
If I'm a liberal, Brianna, and I've spent the last 4 years trying to tell my liberal mates, get off this bullshit about trans athletes destroying women's sport. It may be this election result should serve as the reminder to people, get off this thing.
Exactly.
Because
It's
people
the best
don't want to
thing
hear
that
it.
happened to
Do you
trans
realize
people,
the only
Piers.
time
I'm
that I've heard
begging
this
for
issue-
that to
Let me give
happen.
Brian the final word on this. Brian?
Yes.
We're
The
going to
only
change something.
time that I have heard or debated this issue is literally with you and other people who accept right-wing framing on this issue. So the only people who are
It's not
continuing
right-wing
to perpetuate
framing.
this as an issue, it is right-wing framing because
I'm not
because
right-wing,
nobody
so how can it be
understands-
right-wing
because we're
framing?
not talking about it.
Hey,
Again, the only time I hear
I got
about
one.
it, you can watch MSNBC, you can watch communist, Marxist MSNBC all day long. You will not hear this issue. The only reason that it's put into the zeitgeist on a
completely
daily
not
basis
true.
is
I
Let me
cover
bring in
that
Dave
because I
Rubin.
run the
Dave
institution
Rubin.
every day on my show.
Dave
They talk
Rubin.
about this stuff.
Of
Listen, how about
course
we do?
right-wingers
Let's
talk
try it
about
this way
this.
with a
That's the
simple yes or
point.
no answer. Let's
That
try a
is the
simple
whole
yes or no
point.
question to
Yeah.
Pac-Man and the
Dave?
guy in the hoodie.
Right there.
Let's try it. Let's try it this way.
MSNBC, right there on my
Would you-
phone. MSNBC. There's LGBTQ in breaking news right now on MSNBC. Like, I love calling out the BS. It's right there, MSNBC, on my phone.
Dude, that must
I don't
be,
know what that is.
It must
Like,
be
you guys are
his
so
right-wing
easy to fact
funded
Hang on,
phone.
Dave
Oh
Rubin.
my God.
Dave Rubin.
Yeah, Piers,
Ah.
let me just, I'll try this very simply for our progressive friends here, for Pac-Man and the hoodie guy. If you guys have, I don't know if you guys have kids, but if you had a 14-year-old girl and she was a wrestler, would you be okay? Yes or no? No other words. Yes or no? Would you be okay with her wrestling a 14-year-old boy?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I wrestled for a decade, and men and women wrestle together. That's how it works.
Please stop
Okay,
advocating
champ,
this. It
and-
hurts me. It hurts.
That's
our
how
rights.
it
Just
works.
stop
I
it
wrestled
all.
for a decade.
And this is why we hate you. It's disingenuous. You can't answer the question because you're so ideologically locked in that you can't be honest. You can't be authentic. You can't just say the natural. Well, I wrestled girls whenever I was young. I played for. I was a four-sport kid growing up. I was a coach's son. I played all the sports. Okay, as far as wrestling goes, I didn't wrestle really, in junior high and high school or anything like that. Just maybe some lower level stuff. Maybe middle school stuff like that, where maybe girls and boys would be mixed. I just was so I don't know too much about wrestling. I do know the young people, the young ones, even jiu-jitsu, things like that. You'll see some tournaments where it's boys and girls mixed together, some co-ed stuff. But just in general, I just wanted to see what a Google search would say for his defense for not answering that question. And of course, it's hilarious. Just one question, answer yes or no with no other words. He immediately goes, "It's interesting that you asked that because oh my god, dude." So the AI overview says in high school sports, boys generally stop wrestling with girls at the point where their school establishes separate girls' wrestling teams. This typically happens once a girl reaches high school age, meaning there is no specific age cutoff, as most schools now offer separate girls' wrestling programs. Key points to remember. Trend towards separate teams. Most high schools now have dedicated girls' wrestling teams, meaning boys and girls do not compete against each other in wrestling matches. State regulations. Specific rules regarding girls' wrestling may vary depending on the state and school district. Equality in sports. The shift to separate girls' wrestling teams is seen as promoting equal opportunities for female athletes. That's just what Google says. And and I didn't have a lot of experience, so I didn't want to just go and say he's dumb. Yeah, they do it when they're young, but they switch in 8th grade, and I didn't know the rules, so I just wanted to see with no bias, anything, just Google's bias. But just what does this say? What's an AI overview say of girls and boys wrestling together? And that's kind of what I figured is obviously if there's a girls team, that's how it'll work. There was another thing also saying that there's tons of ways, tons of reasons why girls and boys would wrestle together. If there's not a girls team and they're young, but you know what? There's no specific cutoff age, but do you know when the girls and boys stop wrestling with each other and why it's happening in high school? Why is that, super smart, college educated guys? Why do you think they can wrestle, boys and girls wrestle perfectly fine together, before they're teenagers. Why do you think that is? What happens when boys and girls are teenagers and they're young? What happens whenever they go to high school? Isn't there some awkward stage at some point that's like really important? What's that thing called again? What is it when the kids were there? A puberty. Whenever, the chromosomes and the way that your body, your DNA, and the way that your DNA was written starts to spread out. You start to sprout some hairs. You start to, females go through what they go through. The voice deepens. You know, it's these guys can't be honest, man. They just can't be honest. And Brianna is so frustrated. Look at her. I feel bad for her. She's trying to get people to. She just, dude. I know there's a lot of reasons to not like Brianna Wu, and I know she's a piece of shit. But it's just whenever they're being reasonable, you have to be reasonable with her as well. Okay, and she's saying the right things for the most part in certain scenarios here, accusing people of lying and stuff when they're not. I don't care about any of that. I just mean in general, she's being authentic, and that the authenticity is the highest vibration you can achieve. Yes, I'm a show watcher.
I have a better question. Maybe he knows. If Floyd Mayweather says, I'm now identifying as a woman and wants to fight against a female biological actual woman, Brian, would you be happy with that?
No, of course not.
So you agree?
It would. Yes,
You agree?
but we're having two different. Piers, we're having two different conversations. I'm saying that the reason the vast majority of Americans, think that this was the #1 issue in this election cycle.
All right, guys, video's almost over. I'm gonna try to be quick. You see how flustered he is? Dude, your boy is so flustered with getting caught up with these questions and not being able to answer, and he has to when you got to walk on eggshells and keep moving the goalposts, so you seem like you're correct and you're smart and you're making sense. This is what happens. You get flustered and you say dumb shit like, and this is what happens when the right wing establishment, then their propaganda, and then it ends up, and then voters, they're so dumb they end up thinking that trans stuff is the #1 issue for this election, and that's not true. Why did he just say that? Why did he just say that voters thought that trans issues were the #1 issues in this election? Why did he just say that? This is an expert that's on TV. Why did he say that? Why did he say that? Please explain. Who thought that trans issues or gay issues or LGBTQ anything was an issue in this election? He just said that the Republicans spent $250 million on tricking Americans into thinking that this was the #1 election issue, and that's why they voted that way. What is he talking about?
Is because a well-funded right-wing media ecosystem continues to thrust it
Ben,
into the
what are you
zeitgeist
showing us?
as if this is what Democrats care about. As if this is what Democrats are talking about.
Yeah. What
Ben?
a second
Say
Trump
again?
presidency would mean for trans people like me. Headline MSNBC as we speak. But MSNBC never talks about trans issues at all. Yeah, there it is.
must have access to some sort of
Let me
secret Republican
go to
internet.
Dave
I wanna
Rubin
get
and
on
change
there, man.
subject. Dave Rubin, I want to
Call
play a
Google.
clip. Hang on.
Yes.
Let's change subject. We've done the trans debate.
Oh,
Let's
wait.
just hang
I
on.
have a phone too, and it has MSNBC on it. Democrats would get nothing for throwing trans Americans under the bus. Where did we get this thing? This is incredible.
Look,
What's
you guys
going
can
on
think
here?
it's like some gotcha to that MS acknowledges.
I'm changing the subject.
That MS acknowledges
said it
the
doesn't
existence of
happen.
trans people.
I'm changing
but
the
that doesn't
subject.
mean that, again, that doesn't
I'm
mean that
changing
this
the
election
subject.
cycle. That
Change
this
the
election
subject.
cycle was some referendum on trans
Brian,
Americans.
I am
And the
changing the
fact that you
subject. We're running out of
continue to-
time. I want to discuss other things.
To be clear on what you just watched, he just said, the Republicans keep talking about it as if that's like what Democrats care about, like as if that's what Democrats are talking about as they're showing their phones that MSNBC headlines are talking about trans people and the election and trans people. And then whenever he gets caught with that, he says then that's their second pivot in their other debate style that they do and the type of words that they say. He's like, you guys. I know you guys just got me really bad and I just embarrassed me, but you can think that this is then they go into victim mode. You can think that this is like they're oppressing trans people with getting him on this gotcha. He got himself. You guys can think that this is a gotcha all you want just because MSNBC is acknowledging the humanity of trans people. What? That's not why it's a gotcha. It's because you said Democrats aren't talking about trans people, and Republicans keep saying that they are, and then they prove that that Democrats are talking about trans people, and then you're like, oh, this isn't a thing just because they care, just because they any of the trans people. That's not the point. What are you talking about?
The appointments that Trump has put forward so far, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will run a new Department of Government Efficiency. I mean, having, the most successful, richest and possibly smartest guy on the planet getting stuck into government bureaucracy, I would have thought that's very popular, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so funny. A Department for Government Efficiency, new department when Trump wants to eliminate departments, and instead of being run by one person, it's being run by two.
But they are going to eliminate, according to Musk, they are going to eliminate dozens of departments, though. So by the end of the process,
he said he's going to get rid of 300 departments.
They're going to get rid of a lot of departments, David Pakman. So, I mean, that seems to me to be a good thing, doesn't it? Or do you think that they should be...
Yeah, listen, in his first term, it was not exactly promises made, promises kept. I'm in a reserve judgment to see what happens. And the reason why, and Dave, honestly, I know we're not getting along here. I do like you. I wish we were still friends. I'd love to get our kids together to play soon. Dave Rubin making predictions... is crazy because his predictions always go wrong. Red wave for Republicans in 2018.
I'm telling you, man, it's that smug attitude and that fake, disingenuous personality that you all have on the left. That's why you lost the working class, the middle class. We're just regular, authentic people. All this smoke and mirrors and all the fake personality, the fake bull. Oh, our kid. I wish we got along. I wish we were friends again. Our kids could play Dave Rubin. Look, he was like, looked at you like, what? No thanks. Like, what are you talking about? Your entire David Pakman came on this show specifically to smear Dave Rubin. He clearly has a huge, gigantic honking hard on for Dave Rubin. Because again, what does he say? He says, first of all, think about how dumb he is. The face Dave Rubin made when he said, "Oh, he wants to get." It's typical lefty bullshit. Oh, he says he wants to get rid of departments and be efficient. So what does he do? He makes a new department and makes two people run it instead of one. I mean, that's the definition of inefficiency. Well, if you had two people running a department instead of one, don't you think maybe the department might run a little bit more efficiently? And then if that department was made to chop the heads of every other department, I would want that department to be extremely efficient, like razor sharp. And if you're going to create one department to get rid of 300, down. Let's do that. Let's get rid of all those garbage, bureaucratic, paper pushing departments that do absolutely nothing to help the American people, and all they do is take our tax money, and it bloats our deficit. It's unbelievable. And then the final point, Dave Rubin wasn't making a prediction, you dumbass. He was just answering a question. He said Trump said he's going to get rid of 300 departments. And then Dave Pakman, it has such a hard on for Rubin. He has to go, oh, and then it's rich that Dave's making predictions because all his predictions are wrong. He never made a prediction. And then you thought you had an end to talk about. He's going to name every prediction that Rubin has made in the past that didn't pan out, and I'm not going to put you through that. I'll watch them. If it's anything interesting, I'll give it to you. But you see how 2-3 different ways on how Pakman just looks like an absolute idiot, and then he's sitting there with that smug smile on his face, like he's tearing Rubin to shreds, and he's mopping the floor with Rubin. Every single time he's tried to attack Rubin, it's been out of context, making no type of sense. And this is why we hate you. We hate you so much, dude. I don't think I could ever vote for another Democrat just because you got that. I used to not be like that. I used to vote for whichever president was the best president for the time, and I would go down ballot and pick and choose whoever made the most sense. I've been a non-affiliated voter since I was 18 years old. It's been a very long time, multiple decades. I have always picked and choose down the ballot. My ballot would be red and blue the whole way down. I don't think my ballot could be more red the last 2 or 3 times I voted, and I don't think I can ever vote blue ever again, and it's because of people like you. Your side is infested with these people at every level, at the academic level, in the sciences, in the medical fields. You have infested with your activism. Your activists have left the colleges, and they've gone out into the world, and they've attacked these fields, and they've infested these fields. to the point where we hate all of you so much that it's actually disgusting. It makes me so mad that you people have power and we were all busy working and living our lives while all of you went to college and infested all the higher arts with your trash. And then now we have to fight our way back into it. And that's why I taught myself how to edit a couple weeks ago and I'm making videos. You said learn to code, right? I'm not coding, but I guess it's kind of close, huh? Just a dumb idiot that worked with his hands his whole life. Now I'm on a computer. You told me to learn how to code. I'm here now.
Brianna, what would you like to hear Trump say on Inauguration Day?
I would like to see us find a way to move forward as a country. I've thought so much, Piers, about what I'm going to do differently this time around because Resistance 2.0 is not what the country needs right now. Don't get me wrong. I am a Democrat. I worked 16-hour days trying to get Kamala Harris elected. This election broke my heart. But at the same time, what is frustrating to me about this panel is I see my fellow Democrats and we're sliding into the same mistakes that brought us here. The American people do not care respectfully about your show viewer count. They don't care about this left versus right nonsense. They are looking for stuff that makes their lives better.
Well, the moral of the story, I think, for the progressives is stop being so authoritarian and hysterical and better than everybody, because what you've done is you've taken all of the good liberals of America, of which there are many, and most of them are now Republicans or at least voting for Republicans. And I would like to...
Hey, I'm going to try to button this video up. I wanted to give Brianna a chance to, say her final statement there because I think it's important to give her and reasonable Democrats air. She's being reasonable this time. That's to be clear. Now, I think I kind of proved my point. There's a lot of videos I can make to show why everyone hates the Democrats and why they lost so bad, and I'm going to make more of them. But this was just a kind of an introduction to why everyone hates them so bad. I'm pretty sure you can go through this and all the points I made are just so obvious and these attitudes. I mean, Dave Pakman, this entire panel, he is the embodiment. That smile and the ignoring facts to just smear people and do stuff. That is just like it was the embodiment of why the Democrats lost and why we hate them so much. They are the party of the elites. They are the party of the ruling class and the rich Hollywood class, the newscaster class, the entire ruling class, authoritarian class is now part of the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party works, the Democrats work for the Democrat Party, and the Democrat Party is run by Hollywood and the most rich elites, the media conglomerates, all those people that run this country now are in the Democrat Party. Now, the Republicans have some big hitters too, don't get me wrong. That's why I'm not a Republican, and that's why I don't like Republicans. That's why I'm in America first. If they start that party, you saw what was it, Mike Johnson or whatever the speaker said they're going to raise an America First banner above the Capitol. With all these appointments that Trump's doing, everything that's going on, it's going to be America First only. I'm worried about the Senate Majority Leader choice. We obviously wanted Scott to get in, but the test is going to come to see the loyalty of these American First guys that are getting in that Trump's appointing that need to be confirmed. And we're going to see. We're going to see which guys are not, and whichever ones go against the America First agenda and this is a mandate. This was an America First mandate. Anyone that goes against it needs to be voted out the next time it's available. Trump needs to find a way to get rid of them. I don't care what happens. We need to get rid of all these people that don't put America first and don't put our rights first, don't put our infrastructure first, don't put our homeless first, don't put our veterans first, don't put our minorities first, don't put our marginalized groups first. Anyone that's not doing that needs to leave office. So Brianna said what she said. I proved why everyone hates them in this. I'll show more later, of course. And then we're gonna finish with the embodiment of the Democrat Party and why we hate them so much in just this end little clip here. But I think Dave Rubin knocked it out of the park with his final statement. I mean, they are authoritarian. The Democrats are known to project everything that they're guilty of on Republicans. They're screaming authoritarianism, they're screaming censorship, voter suppression, whatever it is, that's what they're doing. So everything that they've been saying, how Trump's going against democracy, Republicans are going against democracy, they're authoritarian, that's the Democrats. Price fixing in stores to fix inflation is authoritarian. Even her policies were outright authoritarian, and because she didn't have debates, because she didn't really talk to anyone about it. Like, no one called it out. She just hid. This was an embarrassing campaign. They should have never won. They had no business winning. I'm still of the opinion that they lost on purpose. I don't know if it's infighting. I don't know if the old guard let the new guard fail on purpose. I don't know what this was, but this is not the deep state. This is not how the deep state operates. I still expect to see tons of objections to Trump being confirmed. I expect shenanigans, the 14th Amendment from Raskin. Now, believe me, the machine is not done cooking. Again, if you guys liked, like the cartoon at the beginning, the song, any of my sources, I didn't do a lot of sources in this video, but anything would be in the description linked if you want to check out those channels that had that stuff. But yeah, this last clip, this is why we hate them. I mean, they're just so unrelatable. They don't they just don't get it. I don't think they ever will get it. And the Republicans now, the America First Party, they speak to Americans. They speak to the middle class. They speak to the working class. It's only a matter of time before, the rest of people, if they don't learn their lessons, if the Democrats don't learn their lessons, like Brianna said, she said the Democrats are falling to the same thing. And earlier in the show too, if that guy's name's Ben or whatever, the other conservative guy with Dave Rubin, they said earlier, I really love the fact that you're coming on this show and acting like this and saying the things you're saying, because that tells me you didn't learn your lesson and we're about to win for a very, very long time. And that's why they lost so bad, and they still don't get it. A bunch of videos coming for you guys. I just, man, I keep making these big long ones because I can't stop being just, I don't know. I'm gonna release some small ones. Let me know in the comments if you like this type of video and me mixing this stuff up. If you want shorter ones from me, if you just want whatever, I don't know. Let me know. But check this out. This is why we hate them.
But why don't we, given it's been quite a contentious panel, Trump has been ending his rallies with the famous YMCA dance, right? Which is a gay anthem performed by a bunch of gay guys, right? And is now taken fire and has now become a trend around the world. Why don't we all come together as one big cis LGBT, whatever you want to call it, community, and have a little dance? Here we go. And may I note the two liberals were the two biggest wusses not dancing.
Damn, I bet you ain't know Piers Morgan went hard like that. Damn, their music choice was interesting. Holy crap, Piers Morgan goes hard, dude. I seen it back in the day. Piers Morgan was in the pit. You ain't even know. But yeah, as you can see, the two liberals, we'll forget about Brianna this time. But Pakman and Hoodie dude, they look, man, you see them fake smiles? You see them fake smiles they were putting on to pretend like they didn't want to die inside? Because unity's not what they want. Tolerance is not what they want. They want to crush with authoritarianism. That's what they want to do. They want to crush you with their opinions, censor all opinions that disagree with them, label all opinions that disagree with them as some sort of ism that you're not allowed to talk about, which then gets slid into the censor category because it's an ism. It's just like it's Orwell. It's Orwell. It's absolute Marxist Orwellian trash. And we were right to resist it. I'm glad people were able to wake up and resist it in the amount that they were able to get down on paper. Because it doesn't matter if we don't get the result on paper that we want. Doesn't matter if they kill Trump and JD Vance is appointed, if they enact the 14th Amendment, if that whatever happens where Trump doesn't get in office and do the things he needs to do, if that majority leader that maybe not a never Trumper, but wanted during the campaign in 2016 wanted Trump to step down and have Mike Pence take over because he was clutching his pearls. That dude is now the Senate majority leader. It's just if they try blocking him, if never Trumpers block him from doing his job, then it's still the deep state having control. If Trump is able to enact his mandate, an America First mandate for this country and fix this country, then the deep state took a major blow, and this wasn't just some flash in the pan. Oh, they did this on purpose. This was all orchestrated, black pill nonsense. But yeah, dude, dude, they're elitist. They're elite. It's the ruling class. The Democrats are the ruling class. They are the authoritarian in the Golden Palace. And of all people, Donald Trump is the one that exposed it to so many people. The man in the Golden Palace had to point across his gated community at the other Golden Palace and go, "Hey, some fuckers are up to stuff." Wild, wild time to be alive. All right, guys, I'll catch you. Do the things.
Oh, stinky.